I'm joined here today by Richie Vogel, Germany's most up-and-coming rising star. In 2023 alone, you have won and been so incredibly consistent. First of all, you've won one of the most prestigious Grand Prix in the world, the Rolex Grand Prix of Geneva. Also winning with your team, Germany, the Nations Cup final in Barcelona.
Yeah.
Two Grand Prix, five-star Grand Prix in Mexico and here in Wellington. So yeah, we're sat down here in Wellington right now just to get a glimpse of what it's like to be Richie Vogel. You have also really, made a massive stride up in the ranking points. You were briefly in the top 10 even recently, now dropped down to 11th position, you just told me. But I want to know, do you actively chase points?
To be honest, not at all, no. I think that's nice results of the work we do or of the achievements we did or we got. And you can see this as an end result, but it's not that we go to the show to gain points or pick the shows where we can get more points or anything like this. We're not we're not doing this at all, to be honest.
So what do you look at when you make your plans for the year?
Okay, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all down to the horses. So we first you get an overview. Obviously each rider knows, but first you have to make sure which horses have you got in your stable, what horses have you got in your string, and then what kind of shows suits your horses. Some horses need to kind of stay in it, need to go on shows more often. Some horses are better if they have a show, then get 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks off and then go to the next show. Find for every horse the right rhythm to go to shows. Some horses are doing the best if they're on kind of a tour, like we're here in Wellington. If you want, you can show 12 weeks in a row. Some horses are better with a lot of breaks in between. So I think that's important to analyze for each of your horses. And then some horses perform better on grass, some perform better on sand, some prefer large arenas, some prefer tiny arenas. So if you take all of this in consideration, then I think it already helps a lot to figure out what show plan is the best for your horses, for yourself and your horses.
Yeah. So that's purely what you focus on when you make your plans, just what is right for my horses.
Exactly. Obviously, there's a lot of other smaller things, also doing small influences into the show plan, but the majority of what I decide or what's the pros and cons to go to a show or which show to pick is what I just talked about. Yeah.
Right. Those small influences. What are? Give some examples.
There could be one show could be very far to drive, the other could be in the neighborhood.
Right.
But if the one that is far to drive actually suiting my horse is much better and I have the feeling that I can perform there better, and the one in the neighborhood maybe doesn't really suit my horse or that is closer by, I'd rather put the extra effort in and drive a little further in terms of getting a better result or can improve my horses better or whatever. Also, often enough, we don't drive to the show to get results and are not so orientated on the results that weekend. Often we just drive there with horses we want to step up or we want to develop, and we have a long-term plan with the horses, and we actually don't care about the results that certain week. But then there's also shows which is great for horses to step up, for younger horses to develop them. And then there's shows where you drive to actually just drive to get a result and not so much to produce a horse. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different kind of shows, and obviously different kind of horses in different times of their careers. So I think all in all, often it's very clear what shows suits best to the several horses I have on that week.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're very detailed in terms of really looking at what each horse needs, what they're like, what will help them best to improve and yeah, grow into what what you want to achieve with them. Um, can you tell me more about your relationship with your horses?
Yeah, I think that's something that improved a lot in the last year to 2 years.
Yeah.
Before, I would have always had a lot of horses, which we still do. A lot of young horses that we try to, develop, bring up in the sport and so on. But now in the last 2 years, I really realized how important it is to, with the top horses and with the older horses, to have a very, very close relationship. And then more time you can spend with them, which is in our business difficult enough. But every minute you can sit on them or launch them yourself or go for a hike or whatever. It doesn't necessarily need to be proper dressage work or a real proper jumping session. It can be anything, but the more time you're able to spend with them, then better the relationship gets, and then better you work as a team in the course and so on. With some horses it makes a huge difference, and with some the difference is not as big, but with every horse it makes a difference.
Yeah. Okay, so did you make a deliberate decision to create more time with your horses, to be more deliberate about that?
To be honest, it's not that I woke up one day and was like, okay, now I have to spend more time with them. It was more that we were exactly 1 year ago, we were here in Wellington. And here it's very easy for me to spend a lot more time with the horses than in Europe, because even if I show at the weekend and let's say I show a sales horse or another horse, I can still always come back in the afternoons or even before the class, be here in the morning and ride, for example, United or Cepano. So I can spend much more time with them, even though I'm showing at the same time. And also, we're not as busy here. At home, we have, as I said, or as I mentioned, we have a lot of young horses that also takes a lot of time, and you should be fair enough to them to also put enough time into them. But that obviously takes away time somewhere else. And actually in Europe, I find that I have less time for my better horses and especially for the older ones. But here in Wellington, last year I really felt a big difference also with United. Before he came here, won the Grand Prix in Stuttgart, which was our first 5-star Grand Prix win. It was an amazing result, but I still made the experience that after such amazing results, when I was here and I could spend more time with him, flat him more myself. And as I said, even if you go for a hike once a week or in between, get a closer relationship to that several horse, it still helped to make him even better and make him even more listening in between the fences and all of that stuff.
Yeah. So do you feel like spending more quality time with your horses contributed to the success you had last year?
Yeah, we're very convinced about that. I think the time here in Wellington last year was kind of the foundation of all the success we had later in the year also. Also, we ended Wellington on a very good note. We won the Rolex Grand Prix in week 12. But also everything that came past that in the summer and even if you want to go until Geneva just a couple of weeks ago, was for sure had to do with the good foundation we had here in Wellington. And yeah, I think if someone, I mean, everyone kind of knows the more time you spend with horses, then better it is. But I never woke up and thought, okay, now you spend more time with your horses, But actually here, during Wellington last circuit, I really found out for myself what a difference it makes. And especially with your better horses, that shouldn't sound stupid, but if if you have a sales horse, which it is our business, if we like it or not, we also have to sell horses now and then. But if I bring a horse here and I know I'm gonna sell it in the circuit, and that doesn't mean it's not a nice horse. It can be a very nice horse, but then obviously our relationship ends sooner or later, anyways. You know, so I'm for sure more focused and try to take more thoughts about the horses I know I will have long term in the stable, and try to put as much time as I can into those horses, because yeah, I'm very convinced for myself now, not just that people have told me, but also I really figured it out for myself what a difference it makes, and how much it improves at first the relationship to your horse, but then also it takes over into what it actually comes to the end, into the performance in the ring. So yeah, that was actually probably one of the biggest learnings I had in the circuit here last year in Wellington. And yeah, also in summer it's not as easy for us, but it changed a bit my way of thinking. In the summer we really try to have more time for those things. Yeah.
It sounds like you are very deliberate, constantly thinking about, you know, what can be better, what you can improve, what can get you to your goals. Is that right?
Yes and no. I naturally I'm not at all, to be honest.
Okay.
And you know, I grew up and always had a lot of different types of horses, which was for sure good for me as a rider. But horses always came and also left again, which also was good that I learned it from the beginning on. So now it's never really normal for you, but I can live probably better with it than if it never happened to me. And now all of a sudden I have to start to sell horses, and horses that I get attached with are leaving the stable, and then for sure it's harder. So that has always been a bit of my world, and for me it was always clear: try to train the horse the best you can, try to ride it the best you can, and try to give it the best ride in the ring that you can, and the best result will show up. But now actually one very important person in my life that changed that way of thinking is McLean Ward, who I'm having the pleasure to talk to a lot, and every now and then train with him, but I can also always call him and ask for advice and so on. So he's more a very, very good friend, and you know, a partner for me, I would almost say, than just like a trainer, but also obviously an idol and all of that. But anyways, he actually taught me how much more it is important to not just have a good horse and have a good rider and the rest's gonna happen, you know. There's so much more things that make a difference and that are important. And yeah, we're working not with a machine, not with a gadget, a football or whatever. You know, we're working with a living animal that has feelings, that has its own mind, that has a character. And all of this is as important to form and to get all of that on your side, and you know, try to get a team spirit, than just to pick a horse with great abilities, a lot of scope, clever, careful, and try to put a good rider on it. It also needs to match, you know.
Yeah.
So so McLean in that way of thinking, like to get a better team with your horse, and also in a lot of other things, talking about planning, and you know, he's very detailed and very precise, and is a perfectionist. So he taught me a lot in all of those types of thinking, and you know, taking your thoughts and making better plans. Yeah, so I'm thankful that he taught me all of this.
Yeah. So even though naturally you weren't as focused on those kind of details, you have learned, and you keep learning from the best to keep improving yourself. And what I'm hearing you say is that at the end of the day, it's not as simple as finding the best horse and combining it with the best rider. It's really about creating that chemistry.
Yeah.
And that requires an investment of the rider to really spend time to connect. Is that right?
Absolutely, like it is, and if we're aware of that, we see it all the time happening around us.
Yeah.
For example, my student Veronica Tracy, a lot of horses, every now and then I ride them or even I show them, like some of her horses, but most of them, they jump much better for her. And they fight in the ring, they fight for sure more for her than they do for me, you know, because I get on every now and then, but it's not that I have a close relationship to them.
Yeah.
And I think if we're aware of that, we can see it happening all the time around us.
Yeah. Would you say that so what I hear you say is that actually the relationship you create with your horse is far more important than the qualities, I don't want to call it talent, but the qualities of a rider. Would you agree with that?
No.
Okay, all right.
I wouldn't say it's far more important. I would see it as two things. And for sure, just being a great rider, having no relationship with the horse doesn't work, or doesn't give you the best performance you can have.
Yeah.
You can survive in the ring and
Yeah.
you can finish a course. You may catch a rail because you're not really a team, or the horse isn't listening as good to you, or is not fighting as much for you, or whatever. But you can finish a course on a certain level, or even produce a result on a certain level. But if we want to talk about how we get as close as possible to 100% of perfection, or of the best performance we can do, which is obviously never really possible, but that's what we're aiming for, then I think both of it needs to be as good as possible. Your personal performance needs to be as best as possible. You need to give the horse obviously a very good ride, but also you need to have a very good relationship, and the partnership with the horse needs to be very good. And if one of the two is lacking, or is only 50%, then for sure your performance can't be closely to 100%, you know. So I think, it's two different parts. I think a person that can have a really good relationship with the horse, and can be a good team with the horse, can still not ride the horse as good as the person in theory could. And also the other way around, a very good rider can have just not a good enough relationship to the horse, and the performance is actually not as good as it could be with a better relationship.
Yeah, that's, I think, a really important point to point out. So yeah, you've achieved a lot of success. Now, my experience has told me that that always comes with setbacks and failures as well. Have you experienced any of those?
A lot of them. I always feel no one has experienced them as much as I did, which is for sure not correct and right. But yourself, you always are. You're more aware of them as other people around you, probably because you experienced them yourself. But yeah, I don't mind failures. Obviously, I don't love them, and obviously, I prefer victory, or a good achievement, than a failure or a bad achievement. But I think, especially if you're on a way to get a better rider, or to step up, or if you're young and you need to get experience, you know, I think the one of the biggest mistakes you can see is that people are literally afraid to do mistakes, and that makes them almost freeze a bit, and then out of that mistakes happen, you know. Whereas if they're trusting into their abilities a little more, and try to ride the best they can. And if it was not good enough that one day, or if they made a mistake, or let's say you were clear and you go into a jump off, and there's a rollback, and you're quite motivated, and you roll back tight, and you missed out of the turn, or the horse chipped, or you were too far off, or whatever, and you got to rail it. For sure, not great, and it sets you back, and you're a little down. Or I always take it hard enough on myself, I would say. But what I also would say about me, I'm a good learner out of mistakes. And a week later, I'm not afraid to do it again, you know. I'm not, the next jump off I will do is not, the theory is not to just take 5 more strides through the turn. I try to analyze what went wrong. Did the horse shift over the shoulder, or you know, did I was just too nervous to actually see a distance, or what, you know, what went wrong? Try to analyze, not just, okay, it went wrong, next time just don't do an inside turn anymore, or a tight turn in general. Try to actually analyze the problem and work on it. Try to improve it at home. It's not that I practice jump offs a lot at home, but if you have a horse that is difficult to turn, I think it's important to also improve those types of things, you know. That doesn't mean you should do a jump off every day at home, or practice a jump off every day at home, but you can use canter poles or whatever you want. There's a lot of ways to improve those types of things. And then by improving that, or by try to you know, by training that, I get more confident about it, and the next time I'm in a jump off, I try to, you know, do the same turn, same tide, and maybe it goes better, good, and maybe it still is not good enough, and I go home and train again. But I think a big mistake is just to try to avoid mistakes and never try to turn tight, because it could go wrong.
Yeah.
Or you know, never step up because it could go wrong. For sure, you also shouldn't do. We're working with horses, and we should not ask them to do something they're not capable to do. And also, you as a rider should be capable to do it. But clearly, no one got better or improved by not doing mistakes. So I think it's the most normal thing in the world to do mistakes. And I think you shouldn't feel bad if you did one. Important is just to learn out of them. That's the most important thing, I think.
Do you get upset when you make a mistake?
Yeah. I would lie if I would say no. I get upset, and it takes me, sometimes it really depends on the situation. Sometimes I get upset for 10 minutes, sometimes for 3 hours, and sometimes it takes me a day or even 2 to get, you know, fine with it. And I think it's also important that you care about. You shouldn't just be, whatever, made a mistake, but just let's try it next time. Because, yeah, mistakes are, I think, you can be thankful at the end of the day. I'm never in this moment, don't get me wrong, but you can be thankful for a mistake that happened, because it shows you that wasn't good, and that's something we need to train on.
Yeah.
So use it as a advice to make it better next time, you know. And also in our sport, people talk about, oh, you need to be very talented and you need to have very good horses and this and that, but at the end of the day, most things in our sport you can really learn. It's not just about being more talented or having a better horse or having a quick horse. When I first got United Touch, everyone almost laughed a bit at me, and a lot of colleagues and friends always also said, yeah, I'm not sure, I mean, obviously he can jump a lot, but he always has time faults. Like, it's just not a sport it's just not a horse for the modern sports we are in. It would have been a great horse 30 years ago when the time allow was not as tight and the jump offs were not as quick probably, and not as fast. But nowadays there's no use for that horse. But yeah, also with him, I think if you know what your problems are or what your weaknesses are, and yes, I also often enough had time faults with him already. So I was pretty soon in our relationship in United's and mine, I was aware that we need to get quicker, we need to work on the speed and on the time allowed, stay inside the time allowed and all of that. So that's something we worked on quite a lot, and yeah, it obviously improved quite a bit.
Yeah.
So a lot of things I think you can improve by training and by just also by doing,
It's such an important lesson, right? Because it's if we say talent is what really determines success, it's really hard to, it might feel hard to do something about it, but realizing that most things are trainable, that really shifts you into a position of having a lot more control over your career, over your results. And what I hear you say is basically, you are not afraid to fail. You make the program what is required. You don't write careful. You don't hold back. You do what you need to do to, get that one step further. If then things don't work out, you can get upset, but then, at some point, put that aside and focus on a more detailed plan of action. Not just like that needs to be better, hopefully better next week, but actually looking at pinpointing exactly what needs to change and then bringing that into your training to work on that.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a very, very helpful advice. So basically then failure or your results in the ring, they become feedback, right? It's not really something personal. It's more feedback as to where you are in the training.
Exactly. It's the results in the ring doesn't show how good you are or how bad you are. It is just a feedback on what step are you right now. And if you had a bad week, obviously on that week, you yourself or also the horse, it's always both, obviously, but mostly it comes down to the rider that didn't perform good enough and well enough, or the rider didn't train good enough at home with the horse or whatever. There's a lot of mistakes that could happen only on the show or already at home and in the process towards the show. But as you say, it's only a feedback. It's not showing how good you are or how not good you are.
Yeah.
And also success. If you have a very good week or weekend, it's nothing that stays there forever. It's just, if you want to say it, it's just rented. If you put a lot of work in, that's basically the rent you pay to get success. But then if you have the success and you're like, okay, now we're successful, now I can lay back and enjoy the success, or now I'm there, now I don't have to train as much to stay there anymore. I think then very quick it'll go downhill again.
Yeah.
So that's just a very recent reflash or indicator where you're right now, but it can be totally different the week after, in both ways.
Yeah. So you can't really become complacent with that learning process, right?
Yeah.
And again, that really does strike me talking to you, that inherent wanting to keep improving yourself and your horses. Though you really focus on that and focus on the horses and what the horses need, at the same time, I've been told you're also incredibly hungry and competitive. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, now here, for example, in Wellington, I'm lucky enough to have some very good horses here, and then I think it's a bit of my responsibility to give them the best ride I can, and to also kind of give the horses and the horse owner and the grooms and the farrier and the vet, everyone that is involved and everyone that puts all that work in, the best result we can achieve, And if then I have the feeling I kind of did a mistake or didn't ride well enough or didn't put enough time in the training, which I would lie. I try to never get that happen, but I would lie if I would say that never happened. And then that's actually what makes me the most upset. If I have the feeling, if I would have done this and this differently, it would have influenced the result much better, because in our sport there's so many people involved. It's not just that I have to, if I'm a swimmer and I swim a good time, it's good for me. It's not as simple for sure, but it's not the horse involved, the farrier involved, the blacksmith is the farrier, the vet involved, and the grooms, they're working so hard for all of that. So yeah, I think we have a responsibility for all of those people and the horse to try to do our best performance, and that also for sure keeps me very hungry. Yeah.
Have you ever doubted yourself?
Yeah, very often, very often.
Really?
I must say, for sure, then more good rounds you have, and then more success you have, then more self-confident you get. But also this is something that also goes away quick again. You have 2, 3 bad shows and you start to be again, you don't ride your best anymore. You've been riding better already, and but especially in the beginning, yeah, there were a lot of doubts for sure. Yeah. Like in the beginning of my career. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
Different. There were always different stages. There were stages where I even doubted the whole, like since I was 12 or 14, around that time, I was always convinced that I want to do horses as my job or for my living, whatever that would be. I wasn't sure in the beginning. Groom, a farrier, I wasn't sure. I mean, always my dream was that I was a rider, but I wanted to be involved with horses, however. And yeah, the plan A was rider, so that's what I went for at first. And when I was 17, I started my first job. But there already I realized, not sure if you're actually good enough, because yeah, it takes a lot. And also it's coming down to not only be a good rider, but a lot of other things you have to be good at. So then I, pretty early already, I doubted the whole plan or the whole dream, and questioned myself, should you not try to be a good farrier, because I'm always, whatever I do, I'm very bad in doing something I'm not good in. Like I'm terrible with that. So whatever I want to do, or whatever I'm doing, I want to be the best I can, or also often compare myself with others, and I don't want to stand there as the worst farrier or the worst rider or the worst, groom. So whatever I do, I try to do very good and very well. So that would have been an option for me, but yeah, I never really let go the dream to be a rider and to be a professional show jumper. But on the way there, I doubted a lot. Yeah, I have to say, and I even, there were conversations with my dad. For a while, I wasn't convinced if I'm even in the right business. I thought now it's also too late to start as a farrier maybe. So I had conversations with my dad. He has a construction company. They're building roofs. So if I can start in his company. When I was young, I was helping out a little bit there, and it's also something I would have, liked to do, but I was always loving the horses more, and there was always a bigger dream for me to do that and try to make my hobby to my job and my passion. try to do this, for my living. So yeah, there were a lot of doubts, long story short, but I never really quit, luckily.
Luckily,
Yeah.
indeed, yeah. I think it does resonate with a lot of people who have moments, maybe even right now when you're watching this, like, oh, I don't know if I should go on, if I'm good enough. You know, I recognize that when I was writing, you know, I had those thoughts like, yeah, what's the point, you know? So it's really helpful to realize that, you know, everyone has those moments.
Yeah.
And I wonder if also that hunger to want to be the best has, you know, driven those decisions of constantly wanting to improve and get better.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you want to make it to the top, you shouldn't be happy with just be a good rider, you know. You want to be the best rider. Even that's not possible for everyone, or for a very little percentage. And who is the best is also not something we can actually really take in consideration. But that's what you have to aim for, you know. And whether you ever succeed or not, you will never succeed, because I don't think there's anyone out there that would say I'm the best rider. And even if we say Ludger Beerbaum in his prime is and was the best rider, or was and is probably still one of the most successful riders there has been, but I don't think he woke up in the morning and said, "Oh, I'm the best rider," you know. And I think all of those people have in common that they every day they wake up, they want to improve something, you know. They never have the feeling, okay, now that's the finish, and or that's the goal. Now I succeeded, or now that's the end of the journey. Now I made it. I'm the best. I think every day they wake up and try to improve something and try to get better, and never have the feeling I'm good enough. And also, even if you're at the top, let's take Henrik von Eckermann right now. As I said, success is not something that stays with you forever, you know. It comes and goes, and you have to maintain that, and you have to work hard for that. And also time's changing. So there's up and coming riders, Julien Epayat. If you see him ride, how the way of his, you know, style, and how he rides his horses, and the way his horses jump. And if you look back not so long, 20, 30 years ago, how the typical German way of riding was, it's totally different.
Yeah.
It's like two extremes. So that just shows us, I think you can never lay back and be, okay, now I'm pretty good, or one of the best, and I just try to keep it like this, because A, it won't stay like this, and B, I think you need to always, you know, go with the time and improve, and also adopt to the horses, because also the horses change. The whole breeding has changed in the past year, and it will also change further on. We think the way how light the horses are nowadays, and how clever and how quick they are, that's already a big change in the past 20, 30 years. But there will be another big change in the next 30 years. In what direction, I don't know, but there will be one. So yeah, I think it's just very important to always stay on top of that.
Yeah. You've also told me once that focus is one of the most important things, but also sometimes the most difficult to maintain. And I know you're super busy. Obviously, now with success comes also more opportunity, I'm sure, and you just get really busy. So how do you stay focused?
Yeah, I must say that's actually a bit of a problem. Not so much in the very important classes, because there you can feel a lot of pressure, and you work and train long time for that one class, or that one weekend, or that one show. But more actually in the daily work, and in the classes that are maybe not as important, or you do a young horse class and all of that. Actually, there it's much more difficult for me to focus, and to not be all over the place and be somewhere else with my mind. I think Also, it's very important. If you ride a horse, you can rather only ride for 20 minutes, but be with your whole thoughts and with everything with the horse, and you know, be aware what you're doing and not just ride it to be ridden. Then sit an hour on the horse and be on the phone and think about this and about that, and just, you know, ride and watch the time, and now an hour is over and I can go back to the stable, you know. So and with any type of horse, with the youngest to the oldest, I think it's very important to, you know, be focused, and and even a bit to also almost out of respect, because, you know, it's not, the horse's day is also 24 hours like ours, and they get ridden most likely once a day. So something, I would say, between half an hour and an hour. Like the very young horses, we have the 4 or 5 years old, we don't ride them so long. I don't find it good for their, you know, they don't have enough muscles and all of that to be ridden too long. But anyways, you don't sit on that long if you take it in a percentage of the whole day they have. So the time we spend with them, I think we should really be focused on them, and make sure we're doing we train what they need to train, and we try to improve what needs to improve, and not just ride them to be ridden. But there, it's actually the most difficult in those situations. It's the most difficult for me to be focused, because it's nowadays there's more and more distraction coming. My phone rings more often than I want it to ring. At home, people come up, want this, come up, want that, ask questions. So it's difficult, but I think it's something A, you can train, and B, you first you need to be aware that you really want to be focused, and then it's almost more a habit than a skill, because then I just either don't take the phone with me and leave it in the stable, or I put it on silent and I don't even recognize when it rings or when a message comes, you know.
Yeah.
It's more a decision for me than a skill.
Exactly.
But yeah, if you want to be distracted, there's a lot of reasons to be distracted. But and I think even people at home, if they can just walk up and ask you this and this and this, they will always come up and ask you this and this. But if they know, oh, he's riding right now and he doesn't want to be disturbed 20 times during he rides one horse, then they'll just wait, and it becomes also a habit for them to, he'll be back in the stable in half an hour and I ask him when he's back, you know.
Yeah.
So so I think that's something that can, you know, be a habit, to sit on the horse and to be focused, and not just to sit on the horse and be available for a phone call and available for questions and talk to whoever else is riding in the ring, you know.
What I'm hearing is that you make a very conscious decision that you prioritize your horses and the sport.
Yeah.
And if you want to get to the top, that is required.
Yeah.
And if that pisses people off, then sometimes that might be a consequence, but one that you have considered, and that's totally okay. One other thing you mentioned struck me. You said it's out of respect for the horse to be very present, and that's actually something that Steve Gerdau also mentioned when I talked to him. Being really present when you are riding, when you are with them. Is that key to focus, you think?
Yeah, I think so, because we talk about our focus all the time, but also might not be the ideal answer to your question, but what firstly comes up in my mind now that I hear that. But we also obviously need the horse to focus. And we cannot expect the horse to focus if we're not focused at all, and we're distracted, and we're, you know, thinking about 10 different things, and watching whatever goes on around the ring. But we expect the horse to not watch whatever goes around the ring. We expect the horse to be focused. But I think, yeah, we cannot be not focused ourselves and expect the horse to be focused. You know, that doesn't work. So I think we have to basically show the horse what we you know, put the importance on right now in the next 20 minutes, and then the horse will follow us. The horse is naturally a very good creator. They try to do everything as good as they can, and try to answer the questions we ask them, or try to follow our instructions. That's very lucky for us. But then we also have to give them clear instructions and you know, show them in a very clear way what is important to us, you know. And if we're not focused, and if we're, you know, doing whatever, chatting away with someone else or on the phone, or yeah, there's a lot of different things we could do while riding, but then we don't give the clear picture to the horse that the horse should be focused as well, you know. So I think only for that, but also for a lot of other reasons, like your personal better performance, for example, but only also for the horse to focus, we also need to be aware that we should be very focused. Yeah.
So you recently won this super prestigious Grand Prix in Geneva. First of all, did you celebrate?
Not really, to be honest.
No?
No.
Why not?
I'm not a big celebrator. Like we had what we actually did, well, we never do, but my girlfriend, Sophie Hinners, and me, her brother and his wife and their 2 kids, we went to, what you call it, like it's like a spa thingy for 2 days actually.
Okay.
So that's something I would never do, but Sophie talked about that the whole time, and she would have gone anyways with her brother and the kids and all of that, you know, the whole family, and she really wanted me to join, and I was always no, I'm not coming, and she knows me, so she was okay with that. But after I won the Grand Prix, you know, I think no excuse. I think no, you should come. And yeah, I went.
2 days are allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So can you tell us what you feel what has determined that you won such a big Grand Prix at actually quite an early stage in your career?
A lot of things, probably a million moments or lessons in my life that I got teach from very important people I got to work with together in my life, or that are still kind of, I know I have them behind my back, and they give me a lot of confidence, you know. So a million different things, but right before, I would say, I had a good season with United already, and as I said, here in Wellington, after we actually won a 5-star Grand Prix already, we still did a big improvement here in Wellington. And then in Europe, we did some Nations Cups in the summer, and a lot of things didn't go exactly the way we expected it, you know, and there were also quite a few mistakes happening in the summer. But with what we talked about earlier, we tried to learn out of those mistakes, try to improve, and then we had a very good show in Barcelona, won the Nations Cup final there, so that was a big success for us, and then actually I left to Mexico, and I wasn't with United for almost 2 months. So the next goal after Barcelona was Geneva, and something, you know, we really worked onto. As I was gone, you know, we made sure we have good people at home riding United. Naomi, who is taking care of him at home and rides him at home, she did a perfect job. But every now and then, David and my girlfriend Sophie Hinners also rode him. And, you know, before they went on, I talk to them, what we should make sure, in what way we work him and so on. So yeah, we were pretty focused on Geneva and tried to make a good plan for that. And before I went to one training show and just played around with him, wasn't focusing to get a result at all on that show. Just have him there, get him in the ring, train, see what works, what needs to improve until Geneva. And then we went to Geneva. We felt that we had a good preparation. We felt that we were in good shape. Also, for sure, Barcelona was a good booster for us because, as I said, in the summer we had some successes, but also enough mistakes happened, and there were some downs all the time in between. So in Barcelona we felt that we had the whole puzzle as much together as we had it until that stage. And he had a long break after Barcelona. He was very fresh, very motivated, and felt good in front of Geneva. And then I only had him there, so the whole focus was on him and on the Grand Prix. And for sure, at the end of the day, you also need the right bit of luck. No one ever won with bad luck. But I think that we just also had a good preparation, and both United and me, we had a good mindset already going into the show.
I think you create luck, and it sounds like it also takes a village to create that luck, right?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Final question. What advice would you give young riders that want to become successful and get to the top to actually get there?
It's this question I get asked a lot, and I could talk 3 hours about it, or about the advices I would give, because I think it takes a lot of things, and I also was lucky that I always had good teachers early stage. My uncle taught me a lot of good things. Then I had my first job with Family Herbert. Then I went to Ludger, then I had horses of Hugo Simon and got to train with him. Now I do a lot with McLean. So I think it's important to be aware who you surround yourself with. Try to have a good surroundment. And then don't be, I think it's very important to not be afraid to make mistakes. When I first got my job, it's a bit a long answer for that simple question, sorry, but when I got my first job, on every second round I did on the show, I had a chip. Like all the time horses would chip. And you can look that up, it's still on Clip My Horse. It happened all the time. And they got crazy because they knew I'm not a bad rider, but they said, this guy doesn't get it. He's always too far off. And I always gave them too much space and sat too quiet, never had enough leg on with the younger and greener, unexperienced horses, and they always didn't know, should we take off or should we do an extra stride? And often enough, there was not enough space also for an extra stride, so it was not the best pictures always. But, and those were also times where you started to doubt the whole thing, and that's fine to make mistakes and to also have a phase where you doubt it, but then, keep going and actually try to not get too emotional, try to analyze what do I need to improve, what do I have to work on, and I think with a lot of things that we say, I just never had a good enough horse. But at the end, most things are in our hand, Yeah, I think most things in this sport, even though it's a difficult sport and a lot of things needs to go the right direction, but most things we can influence ourselves. And that's important to know, even if you're not born in a rich family or if you don't have financially the best background, you can still... it might take you a bit longer maybe, or you might have to go a different path than other people, but there is a path for you to get successful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very inspiring and really, really helpful advice. A lot of it. So
Yeah.
thank you very, very much. Really appreciate your time and your wisdom. Thank you.
Welcome.